everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Ashwati. Students, in this lecture, I'm going to discuss previous year's questions. As you know that in the past few lectures, we have discussed many political thinkers from your unit number 2, and that is political thought. So, as you know that the unit number 2 has political thinkers not just from West but also like Chinese political thinker Confucius is there, Franz Fanon and various other thinkers are there. Okay. So, let us move to our previous year's question. So, why studying about previous year's questions is necessary? This will give you a kind of an insight into what sort of questions are asked in the examination. It helps us to understand the examination pattern, types of questions, also it helps in building strategy, how to crack the examination when you know that, as you know that all the topics which are covered here, they all belong to that of your UG and PG courses. So, like you have studied them in a subjective manner. Here you have to prepare them in an objective manner. So, how you can prepare them? So, as we know that, like as I have emphasized in many of my previous classes, that you have to keep an eye on the important thinkers, their ideas, their books and their important concepts. So, basically the questions or the pattern followed by UGC is like the way like they ask you questions from that of the books, ideas, the years or the events associated with particular thinkers or any political event. All these things are very important ones. So, let us check out our first question here. Here we have a question from Leviathan. Leviathan is a book written by Thomas Hobbes, an important social contract thinker, and he is also associated with absolute political obligation. So, we know all these things about him. Now, we have to arrange his book chapters in a chronological way. So, here we have of sense, of imagination, of reason and science and of speech. So, here our correct answer is A, B, D, C. So, A comes first, B comes second, third of speech and fourth one of reason and science. So, we have A, B, D, C which is the answer. So, here answer is A, okay, A, B, D, C, and let me tell you, Thomas Hobbes is that political thinker who has given a kind of an idea. Obviously, he criticized the political chaos of his time, the 17th century issues of the faced by the England, that was addressed in his works. And more importantly, Leviathan is a kind of a work where he says that where the people actually submit all their natural rights except the right to life, and they insecure, like why they are forming a government, it is for their for their protection, for the protection of their liberty and life and whatsoever it is, because he created a very pessimistic image about the state of nature. State of nature is that a state of anarchy, that is the time when there was no government. So, he was of the opinion that it is better to have a government than having no government. So, any form. So, he created once that government is established, like where people actually submit all their natural rights to one person or to an assembly of men. Here people actually what they get in return, it is the security which they lacked in the state of nature, because the human nature or the general nature of the state of nature was like people lived like nasty, brutish, short. There was always a perpetual struggle for power, which only according to him ceased in with that of a death of a person. Secondly, he also mentioned that human desires are insatiable, and fulfillment of one desire led to the creation of new desires. It means that human desires are insatiable. So there is always a potential that like people will be always in wanting for them, they like want, they have needs, and in order to fulfill those needs people would definitely get into scuffles with others, and it is going to create a complete state of anarchy. In order to get rid of such anarchic situation, you need a government, and for that he created a Leviathan, or a form of government, or a commonwealth, whatever he say, whatever form, like he uses that name for that. For him, the idea was absolute political obligation. Once you have created the government, there is no return. You have to stay there. So this is about your first question. Okay. So A, B, D, C, of sense, of imagination, of speech, and then finally of reason and science. Now here we have a very important question. Who stated that if life only were the object, slaves and brute animals might form a state? So here we have options like Plato, Aristotle, Confucius, and Hannah Arendt. So here we need to understand one important point, that what sort of like here this is about why you need a state. The state was needed for a good life, because here when we read out the statement that if life only were the object, if just to live was only the object, then slaves and brute animals might form a state. So who has spoken about slaves out here? So this is the best way how you can actually minimize it. Confucius? No. Plato? He was not in terms of, he did not speak about much about slaves, not Hannah Arendt. Then whom we have? Like Aristotle. So let's check out the answer here. Yes, B, Aristotle. Okay. Now Aristotle is that person who justified slavery. For him, for the proper functioning of government, the citizens who actually directly involved in that of everyday deliberative practices of governance, they needed respite from their household chores and various other works. So for that they needed slaves. So for here, he is of the opinion that it is not just about creating a life, it was about the objective of the state was to create a good life. So for that, if your objective is just about having a life, then anyone can, even the slaves can also create a state. That is what in that statement is. So here you can say that in the changing patterns of UGC-NET, we are getting questions from anywhere. And this is a very subjective question that you have to, by looking at the options, you have to think that what could be the answer? How you can crack this question? You have read about slaves. Who has spoken about slaves? Who had spoken about slaves? So you can actually eliminate in that manner. Moving to our next question. Franz Fanon book Black Skin, White Mask includes following chapters: A. The Negro and Language, B. The Negro and Culture, C. The Negro and Psychopathology, and D. Negro and Recognition. So which among the following chapters were part of it? So except B, rest of like the Negro and Language, Psychopathology and Recognition are part of his chapters, okay, from this book called Black Skin and White Mask. So our answer is D, A, C and D. So let's check out Yes, the answer is D. Let me tell you, Franz Fanon actually spoke about the idea that how the people, it's a very common tendency among the people to replicate or to like try to like copy that of the colonials or the colonialists, and in this way they are actually degrading themselves. He is actually asking them to develop their own identity, to respect their own identity and their culture. This is what he has actually spoken in his work. So it's a very important one, and students, he is one of the most important post-colonial writers, and he was involved in the Algerian civil war against that of the French forces, and he is a doctor, and he was a doctor, and he has written various other works as well that we will be discussing in other questions as well. So Franz Fanon is a very important thinker who has actually addressed the issues of racism, color based racism, then after how the exploitation takes place. So he has been a victim of it. So because of that, he has been he had been very powerful in expressing them as well. Moving to our next question. Who among the following thinkers holds the view that no citizen should be sufficiently opulent to be able to purchase another, and none so poor as to be forced to sell himself? This is also a very subjective question, let me tell you. And to address this question, you have to think about it like selling oneself or forced to sell oneself. Who could be? Like here we have Locke. No. Locke, he had actually promoted, or we can say that supported the private property. Edmund Burke is a conservative thinker who spoke about human imperfection. Then we have Immanuel Kant. He is a like what we say, he has spoken about the perpetual peace theory, pure reason. He has not spoken all these things. So we are left with Jean-Jacques Rousseau because he has identified the theories of inequality. Yes, the answer is C. As you know that he is the one who has mentioned in his one of his works that it was because of the invention of iron and corn that led to the downfall of the civilization. As well as he spoke about the idea that with the development of arts and science also created much tensions, because according to him, when human beings were living in a state of nature, human being was a noble savage. Solitary he lived, but he had the essentials of freedom and everything was there. But when the community started living together, or let's say that when the origin of like living together started, like when people started coming together and started living together, it created the private property, it created us and them, the differences between rich and the poor, the governed and the governing class, between the master and slave, and all these relations were part and parcel of it. So he has spoken about the theory on inequality, that, and he gave a historical analysis as well. Now moving to our next question. Now in this question, like you have to find out which of the following these groups are correct. Okay, Hannah Arendt, the postmodern conditions. Jacques Derrida, the postcard. This is the correct one. Franz Fanon, the breast of the earth. This is also correct one. Antonio Gramsci, this is a wrong one. This is a wrong one. So here we have B and C are the correct. So our answer should be B. Okay, B and C. Yes. So as you know that Jacques Derrida is a very important thinker associated with that of deconstruction, postmodernism, and Franz Fanon, as I have already mentioned, that he has worked on the post-colonialism, and the breast of the earth is one of his very famous book. And this is a question for practice for you people. Now, according to Hegel, a war is to be regarded as an evil but a virtue. B. War effectively displays the irony of the divine idea. War destroys the selfish egoism of the individual. The state of war shows the omnipotence of the state in its individuality. E. Humanity never needed war and the gun is a chance of invention. So here you have the options A, D, C, B, A are the correct answer, B, E, C, B, A, C, C, E, A, D and D, C, A, E, B. So you have to put the answers, whatever your answers are, put that in the comment box so that let me check like how many of you have given the right answers. So students, that's all in this lecture. See you in another lecture. Bye.